25 weeks from today, yes, 25 weeks from today, March the 2nd, is week 0 for college football, August the 24th. I'm going to dive into week 0, week 1 when Clemson plays Georgia. Folks, I am itching. Literally, I'm itching. Maybe it's a new fabric softener, but I am itching for college football. I know that you can't wait. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. I'm Brian. I'm glad you're here. Hey, if you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll subscribe, and I look forward to any comments you drop in, just saying hello. Now, before I talk about week 0 and week 1, I want to drop a little video for you. So, I was contacted by Eric Boggs, who is a fantastic YouTube personality, and he said, "Hey, listen, there's this group of YouTubers coming together, and they're from every college team we can get our hands on, and we would like for you to be the Clemson representative." And they were very kind, and after giving it much thought and talking with them and just really learning about their vision, I said yes. So this launch will happen sometime in April. I have more dates for you coming up. But the College Huddle is basically just a group of YouTube commentators based on their team. So if they're a Kansas State guy, they focus on Kansas State. You have guys that's focusing on Ohio State. Eric's a big Ohio State guy. And we're just going to talk about our teams. We're going to intermingle with one another. And it's just going to be a great time. And I'm going to tell you what I like about this, folks, just right off the bat. I like this because these are guys much like myself who they don't have to go with the narrative. See, I'm not here just to stir the pot. I'm just here to tell the truth. And if the pot gets stirred, okay, the pot gets stirred. But I really like this, and I think it's good for college football. I think it's good for our individual teams. So that's big news. I appreciate it, Eric. Eric, if you watch this later on, thanks for the invite, you and your team, and I look forward to this. So let's dive right into week 0. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is one of those years where college football comes early. So as I said, 25 weeks from today is week 0. That's August the 24th. 26 weeks from today, which is half a year away, 52 weeks in a year, half a year away, is the Clemson-Georgia game. That's official week 0. So I'm going to show you the schedules via fbsschedules.com. And I just want to go ahead and let you know I'm not affiliated with them. That's not a bad thing, a good thing, whatever. I just always like to say that just in case someone's like, oh, he's being sponsored by them. No, I'm not being sponsored by them. I wouldn't stop them. But I'm going to share the week 0 schedule. Now, here's what's interesting about this. If you look at this weekend, you see some games. It's not really a big deal. Montana State at New Mexico, SMU at Nevada. You have Delaware State at Hawaii. I mean, whoever was playing in that game right there pulled out a map of the continental United States and said, hey, let's go on out into the ocean. All right, let's get a ruler, and if it fits within the ruler, we're going to fly Delaware State out to Hawaii to play. And I mean, I will still watch these games. Why? Because it's college football. But the game that really sticks out to me, Florida State versus Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. Now, last year, in the opening weekend, Notre Dame played Navy in Dublin, Ireland. It was a really interesting game. The stadium was beautiful. It was one of those great soccer stadiums. Even though Notre Dame beat the crap out of Navy, it was still a lot of fun to watch. First weekend, you want to watch those games. Or I want to. I love watching those games. But Florida State versus Georgia Tech. Now, let's step back and let's look at this. Florida State has our old quarterback, DJ. Everybody's kind of tired of talking about it. Florida State had the best season last year that they had in a very, very long time. And they've hit the transfer portal again. They've recruited solid over the past few years. Unfortunately, you kind of wonder if that whole TCU effect that happened to TCU after they had that majestic season and then they go in and get beat by 58 points in the national championship by Georgia. And then people leave off of the team and then coaches are hired away and then suddenly it's just a joke again. I don't think that's going to happen to Florida State. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that. But you do have to ask yourself, how is Florida State going to respond after their very last game was one of the worst, if not the worst bowl loss in bowl history? And it was the Orange Bowl. We had 75 players sit out. Sorry, not my fault. They should have bought into the vision. Hey, Georgia bought into the vision. Georgia bought into the vision. Their players who could have sat out. They might have had a few that sat out. But overall, that team played. Beat the crap out of you. You have to ask a question, how will Florida State respond? Georgia Tech, on the other hand, Georgia Tech, Brent Key is just slowly getting the team better. Slowly getting the team better. You had all those years with Paul Johnson, and yeah, he won with his system, but my Lord, that set up one of the worst transitions I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm no Jeff Collins apologist, but can you imagine the crap that he had to change? Brent Key, he comes in. He doesn't have to make quite the changes that Jeff Collins was having to make, from a World War II offense to a present-day offense. And it's like, hey, that's great if you can recruit those players to come out and effectively play for you. That didn't happen there. But to see Florida State and Georgia Tech, and really to see the maturation possibly of DJ, that's a big deal. Where, DJ is now twice removed from Clemson. He went and played for an Oregon State team with a very good coach, Jonathan Smith, who's no longer at his alma mater. He went to Michigan State? Will DJ continue to throw the ball on one play like a genius and then the next play throw the ball into the ground? Because he did it last year. I watched him play against Oregon State. Not knocking the guy. Or not against Oregon State, for Oregon State. I watched him play a lot. I wanted to see, in fact, I was interested just to see that Oregon State team because Jonathan Smith is just that good of a coach. That's not an easy job. It's going to be interesting to see how he does at Florida State. Got some people dropping in here saying hello. Adam Harrison. Owie, that Georgia game is kind of scary. I think Clemson would do better than expected. As a Tiger fan, I think I'm just living on a prayer. Adam Harrison, I appreciate you making the comment here, making the comment section. I'm a massive Tiger fan, grew up right outside of Clemson, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, that Georgia game is not looking good. Doug, True Luck, love your candid conversations. Doug, I appreciate it. Thanks for hopping in. If you're new here today, or you've been watching for a while and you never subscribed, if you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll subscribe. It's free. You can't get better than free. All right, so this is week 0. I'm not going to give you a prediction on these games because, it's way too early. But just to see what is there. Now I'm going to switch over to week 1, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. It's going to have a bunch of ads on it, and as it's switching over for, hopefully it won't do the ads. If it does, I'll just have to stop. So you have week 0 out of the way. Now, week 1 goes full blast. Full blast on Thursday, August the 29th. We have the big Thursday games. You see all of those? And I say big Thursday games, but, it's Thursday. I don't know why I said it that way. Now, Southern Utah at Utah, not a big game. You have Western Carolina at NC State, not a big game. Only cool thing about that NC State game is, and let me go ahead and tell you, I'm no NC State fan. Dave Doran does not seem like a warm and happy individual. He's always saying stuff that, even NC State fans have kind of admitted that if he was not their coach, they're not sure that they would be all on board with him. But the thing with NC State is they have Grayson McCall out of Coastal Carolina. I'm going to tell you, Clemson fans, I know you're going to disagree with me. That's fine. It won't be the first time you disagree with me. But if we could have hit the transfer portal and picked up Grayson McCall, I would feel much better. Not that it would fix the offensive line, but Grayson McCall is a fantastic quarterback. I've watched him play in person multiple times. I followed his career at Coastal Carolina. For those of you who are watching and you're new, I'm in the upstate of South Carolina. Coastal Carolina is 3.5, 4 hours away from me down near Myrtle Beach. Everybody says Myrtle Beach, but it's Conway. This guy's playing for NC State, and if he can stay healthy, the past few years he's had some health issues here and there. But if Grayson McCall can stay healthy, love or hate NC State, they're going to be dangerous. Mix him with KC Concepcion. I'm just telling you, this guy can play football. So that'll be interesting just to see him get acclimated. See, it's an easy game against Western Carolina. Out of Coloween, North Carolina. Anyone is like, where's Western Carolina? It's below Cherokee. Or to the side of Cherokee, North Carolina. We have Kansas. Kansas playing absolutely nobody, but Lance Leopold getting that extension. He's or a contract renegotiation. Either one, he's making a ton more money than what he was, and rightfully so. Tulane. It's going to be very interesting to see Tulane. After losing their head coach, he moved on. Other players moved on. I think they got the guy out of, was it Troy? John Summerall or whatever his name is? It's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. Let's move on to Friday, August the 30th. Some more sleepers here. Elon at Duke. Elon gets to play a Duke team in the very first game that we didn't have to play last year. And that, quite frankly, after game about 5, whenever that Notre Dame Duke game was, people didn't have to play the same Duke team that Clemson had to play on opening night. They didn't. When Riley Leonard got injured, and he's now playing for Notre Dame, when he got injured, the potency of that team just went. But this Duke team, new head coach, Mike Elko's now at A&M. Riley Leonard, as I said, he's at Duke. I want to say another one or two players, ended up leaving Duke and going to Notre Dame. This is interesting because that Duke team, after about week 5 or 6, it didn't exist anymore. The one that Clemson played. How did Clemson get blown out by that team that finished not so as good as they looked like? It's because it wasn't the same team playing, Sherlock. That's why. TCU at Stanford. Stanford is an ACC team now. This is weird. TCU, I don't know how they're going to be. Let's move on into Saturday. This is a very weird game right here. Before I get to Clemson, Georgia, of course, I'm not going to give you a prediction now. Boise State at Georgia Southern. Boise State, and I have friends and family who live in Boise. You leave the blue fields of Boise to go down to Georgia Southern. This is just an odd game to me. I can understand Georgia Southern going to Boise State, but Boise State going to Georgia Southern, I'm sorry, for some reason that's weird. That's odd to me. What's up, Taco Gaming 75? What's up, Brian? Tuning in on lunch break. I'm not trying to buy into the hype for this season, but I do ideally see us going 11-1, 10-2, but only if they can fix the turnover problems from last season. Taco Gaming, I'm glad you're here. I hope the lunch break turns out well for you. I hope you're eating something that doesn't weigh you down for the rest of the day. I'm not as optimistic for our season. Not being a jerk here, I'm just not as optimistic. But hey, hopefully you're right and I'm wrong. Trust me, I don't mind, folks. I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind being wrong if it works in my favor. Me being wrong about Clemson football right now would actually work in my favor as a fan. Unfortunately, I don't know. But thanks, Taco Game, and I hope you have a good Saturday. Clemson versus Georgia. Clemson versus Georgia. It's a neutral site game. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, folks. What's so crappy about this is a few years ago, and when we were playing, when we played Georgia in Charlotte, North Carolina, for people who were really not geographically sound for the area, you would think, oh, well, that's definitely leaning towards Clemson because Clemson's closer to Charlotte, North Carolina than Georgia, and that's true. But you have to understand that Clemson's actually closer to Atlanta than they are Charlotte. I know. Unless you've thought about it, Clemson, even though it has North Carolina, I know it's North Carolina, not South Carolina, but it has the Carolina feel. You're like, oh, that was a game that favored Clemson. Clemson's actually closer to Atlanta. Obviously, Georgia's much closer to Atlanta. This is a Georgia Bulldog game. This is going to be a tough one. I mean, Georgia's ticked about last year, but they won't get left out of the playoffs like they did this year. Unless this team lays down and dies. Georgia is obviously the front runner for the national championship, and rightfully so. I'm not going to get into that prediction, but we will have that. And I want to show you this. I'm doing this off the cuff. I hadn't even pre-planned this. Let's just say we wanted tickets right now. And we're on StubHub, okay? I'm just clicking in here. That's what it gave me. To sit way up here next to the toilet, $270 per ticket. Now, I don't know if they're going to release more tickets, but you know that maybe they will, and maybe you can get a little better price. But I mean, look at that, way up here. It's just wow. That's terrible. That's a lot. That's a lot of money to go see our Tigers. Our Tigers possibly get beat. I hate to say that. I'm not going to give any more thought on that. I'm having to refresh my window here, folks, and then I'll share the share my screen again. I have to do this, or else you'll just see ad after ad, ad after ad. And all right, I think I can share now. Adam Harrison, I'm the same way as a Clemson fan. We have to have realistic expectations. What, Adam? You have to have realistic expectations? Doesn't that make you a bad fan, Adam? Doesn't that make you a bad person? You don't appreciate what Dabo did for us in 16 and 18? What? It's obviously a rebuilding process in Clemson right now, but Georgia is the real deal. DP says, I prefer to watch on TV. Guys, thanks for those comments. Talked to Parker Henderson the other day. He called me after my show. And he said, hey, and he lives in the Atlanta area. That's all I'll say. And he said, I don't think that I'm going to go to the game. All right, let's get back to the schedule. And we'll move a little faster. Try to move a little faster. Colorado State and Texas. I mean, I just see Texas beating the crap out of them. Now, here's a game that if you live in this general Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, East Tennessee area, this is an interesting game right here. ETSU, Eastern Tennessee State, at Appalachian State, they're actually not that far apart. I think, a little over an hour apart, something like that. It's less than an hour and a half, but I want to say it's only about an hour and 10 minutes apart. That'll be an interesting game. They recruit a lot of the same players. They're in that same area of the United States. Of course, Appalachian State's one of the most beautiful stadiums I've ever seen. It's not big. It's where it's sitting. I went there last year, and I had a great time. They were very kind to me and my family, even though they knew we were pulling for Coastal. Right here, Furman, and Ole Miss. The only reason I bring this up is Furman is here in, they always say Greenville, South Carolina. I know it's on the website, but folks, if you ride around Furman, you're in Traveler's Rest. You know it. I know it. Missouri, they're starting off with nobody. And I know a lot of these games are nobodies playing somebody. Can Missouri step back up and show why they had a great season last year? That's a tough job out there. Drinkwitz, I can't, which, by the way, he used to coach at Appalachian State. I don't know what to say about him. He does things I don't like, but I would tell you something he does that I do like. He wins. North Dakota and Iowa State. The reason I bring up North Dakota, I bring up North Dakota State and Colorado. These two teams can play football. Even though they're in the FCS, they can play football. And that game, North Dakota State at Colorado, don't be shocked if North Dakota State goes in there and gives Colorado a really good game. Don't be shocked whatsoever. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Interesting enough, Mike Elko just a few years removed from being at Notre Dame on the coaching staff. And he's now coaching against his old team. Now, I think that number 5 ranking, I don't know where they're getting their rankings from, but number 5 Notre Dame, no offense, Notre Dame. Anybody who's watched me before knows that I like Notre Dame. I have no tie to the Catholic Church. None of my family went there. I know they're completely overrated. Clemson is my number 1 by far team. But I like Notre Dame for some reason. I watch their games. And that ranking is way out of whack. That ranking probably, if you had them inside the top 15, which they do, I'd be like, I don't know about this. You know. Texas A&M, that's an interesting game. Mike Elko can coach football. And I don't expect him to go down there and win a national championship. But I'll tell you what I do expect him to do. Do way better consistently than Jimbo Fisher did. Beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Win the games it's a toss-up. And on the games you're supposed to get your head ripped off and the mascot shot at the 50-yard line, you actually put up a fight. That's easy to sell to recruits and transfer portal guys. Trying to explain away how you beat Alabama 1 week and the next week you lost to Vanderbilt. And that's just an example. That is something you can't do. Good luck on that one. Penn State and West Virginia, they're so close in proximity. That's always an interesting game. Penn State, once again, ranked top 10. You always see this. Everybody thinks this is the year for Penn State. 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 Penn State hasn't. I mean, they can't get over the hump. They're a good football team. They are a good football team, but they can't get over the hump. They can't. And I'm not sure that James Franklin's the guy to do it. Temple in Oklahoma, our old friend Brent Venables. This is season number 3. He had some really good moments last year. He beat Texas in Red River Rivalry. That's what I feel like I'm saying. But then the team fell apart. Not completely, but a lot. Right here we have, skipping on down, we have Miami, Florida, at Florida, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. Billy Napier, by the way, have you seen Florida's schedule? Have you seen Florida's schedule? It is awful. It's one of the worst schedules. Let me rephrase that. Hardest, difficult, unbelievably difficult schedules I've ever seen in my entire life. He will not be the coach after Game 6 unless a miracle takes place. Go ahead and mark it down. Remember, I told you that about Jimbo Fisher. I said, Jimbo Fisher, I'm not even sure after, in October, the guy's going to even have a job. I think he made it to November. They fired him. Miami trying to get over the craziness and the oddness that was Miami football last year. Cristobal, people are starting to get fidgety with Cristobal. Yeah, he had this great recruiting class and all this bunch of stuff, but good grief. Remember when this game used to be like a national title contender, even if it was week 1? How far the mighty have fallen. Then DeBoer will have his first game at Alabama, and whatever players are left at Alabama. That guy's an interesting cat. He's either going to fail miserable or he's going to shock the world over the next few years. I don't think there's an in-between with him. When you hop in here in the comment section, Kevin says, I like being comfortable on my couch drinking sweet tea and being super close to the bathroom. Let me tell you right now, there is something whacked out about going into a restroom at Death Valley, and there's 60 guys all right there packed together, and you can see everybody's junk. I try to. I'm just trying to hide stuff. I don't. There's perverts out there today. I'm with you. That's one thing about me going to these games. You hear me talk about this all the time. Well, I don't want to go pay a ton of money to barely be able to see the game and to eat food that is so overpriced that by the time I pay for a hot dog and a drink, they say it's a souvenir cup, but I'm going to throw it away because, I mean, who wants to keep around all that plastic for years to come? That I could have went to Ruth's Chris and ate a steak for it. I mean, who really wants to do that? Taco gaming. I'm trying to take my wife and daughter to their first game. My first game since I was 9. Probably one of the cupcake games. Pardon me. I don't know what to tell you about even the cupcake games. Unless you're willing to sit up there on the very top of Death Valley, up on the concrete where if you tilt backwards, you and your family would die because you'd fall off the back of Death Valley. Unless it's a really trashy team, it's really expensive. You want your kids to be able to see. App State would be a good game, but that's not a cupcake game. App State is coming to Death Valley, and even if Clemson beats the crap out of them, they are coming to play. They are coming to play. But I wouldn't buy tickets now. I'll go ahead and tell you this. Wait after that Georgia game. I'm not joking. I'm not being a jerk or pessimistic. Just wait after the Georgia game. Don't buy tickets now to this one. Roger Parks, going to be a crazy season. Roger is a member. Roger is a member of the Clemson Football Live. Clemson Football Live. Thank you for supporting the channel, Roger Parks. You and I we're realists, but we're called pessimists. He says he's the most pessimistic Clemson fan, and I'm second. We're realist, okay? We're realists. But thanks for supporting the channel, folks. If you want to support the channel, now, if you're on an iPhone, you probably won't see the join button, which is below this video. You'd have to go to a desktop or, maybe some other handheld device. But $3 per month or $5 per month. I just created 2 different tiers. There's nothing different. It's just whether you like what I'm doing, $5 per month or $3 per month. I do appreciate it. I hope you'll subscribe. Keeping it real. Thanks, Roger Parks. And, folks, I played this at the beginning. But for those of you who might be joining me right now, I got 19. Right now it says I have 19 people here. I'm going to play this video again. I have joined the College Huddle, which will launch in April sometime. So I know the date, but I'm not mentioning the date just in case something has to change. But it is a group of college football YouTubers and podcasters. They reached out to me. They said, hey, we would like for you to be the Clemson representative. And so it was really cool, and I'm going to play this video that they sent me, and it's for my channel, but I'm really excited to be part of this group. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and I appreciate the guys over there reaching out to me. And so, hey, one of the things, I go back to this. I enjoy having the freedom to say how I feel without worrying about some editor or some producer or some station manager who's having to worry about press credentials, who's having to worry about ticking off Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so who gives a lot to Clemson and feels like we're throwing shade at the Tigers and they're not going to support the channel anymore or the station or the publication anymore. I enjoy not having to deal with that. So if things are going good in Clemson, South Carolina, and Clemson loses a game just because the other team plays a better game, I'm not going to go after our coaching staff. But if I see our team falling apart like I've watched them fall apart over the past year, actually past 4 years, it's just that year we went to the playoffs with Trevor and Travis Etienne. That year, a lot of talent covered up a lot of bad coaching on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to call it out. I'm not going to lie about it. If you want to be lied to, go read a ton of publications, not all of them, but go read a lot of these publications. Go listen to the local channel that's going to tell you how great Clemson is and how you're a bad fan if you don't hold Clemson to the standard that was set for us, not by us, it was set for us. If you want to do that, you go do that. I am not. I'm not going to lie to you. You deserve better than that. So I'm glad to be part of this group. I'm glad to represent Clemson. I love my Tigers. Going back to this, let's get into the schedule. We're going to finish this sucker out. Talked about Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. Got UConn and Maryland. That's a really weird game. You're like, why do you even mention it? It's just a weird game. Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's always terrible. Virginia Tech is interesting because Virginia Tech slowly got better last year. They slowly get better. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Georgia State and Georgia Tech, they are literally 2 miles from one another in downtown Atlanta. 2 miles. So, I mean, Georgia State could walk on foot over to Georgia Tech to play the game. Georgia Tech, that will be their second game. It'll be interesting to see exactly how that goes. Going to move on down the line. Let's see, what's some other interesting games? Old Dominion at South Carolina. Let me tell you why this is interesting. Spencer Rattler is no longer there. Is Xavier Legette? I think he's gone, right? I think he is. Gamecock fans will correct me if I'm wrong, and then call me stupid and tell me I'm bucktooth and awful. That's great. Appreciate it. But I got my screens messed up here. But if you're looking at South Carolina, South Carolina has some South Carolina is in an interesting spot, and Shane Beamer, I think, is a solid coach. He has a very difficult job. I can't stand the Gamecocks, you know that, but I'm just saying I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I think the guy can coach football. It's just interesting to see how he's going to address this team and how they're going to respond after losing Spencer Rattler, who, by the way, did very well this year, considering he had... You think Clemson's offensive line is bad? South Carolina's offensive line was basically like dressing up mannequins, really big mannequins, and lining them up in front of him, and then snapping the ball and realizing there's no protection at all. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. Old Dominion has not been good, but what's weird about Old Dominion over the past few years, they have select games where they will come out and rush the ball down your throat and you can't stop it. That'll be interesting to see how that goes down. UCLA at Hawaii. UCLA hiring Deshaun Foster. I remember when Deshaun Foster was the running back at UCLA. That was the last really good UCLA team they had. And they hired him after Chip Kelly is just like, look, I'm done out here. I can't do anything with UCLA. I'm going to go be an OC. I'm going to be an offensive coordinator. Go here to Arizona State. Who did Arizona State hire as their head coach since that Jed guy left and went up to Washington? Is that guy from San Jose State? I think it was, or is. That'll be interesting. Idaho's going to get murdered at Oregon. Let's keep going on down. South Dakota State, by the way, I think, didn't they win the national championship this past year? I think they did. In FCS, very good football team, can play lights out. They're going to play Oklahoma State. You never know which Oklahoma State team you're going to get. You're going to get good Oklahoma State. You're going to get bad Oklahoma State. Gundy is, I don't know. I think Gundy's in a place to where it's like he can do just good enough to hang around, and he knows people will leave him alone. That's where he's at. But I'd be interested to see South Dakota State win this game. Going to go back to the comments here on the channel. Got Douglas Spencer in here. My buddies from Yuma, Arizona. Douglas, thank you so much for supporting the channel. You and your family watching all the time. OC rallying his show out this year. Not impressed with him right now. Here's the thing. One minute you hear, oh, he's the one calling he's calling the plays. Then you hear, well, Dabo was helping call the plays. Folks, why was Dabo Swinney? If that is true, why was Dabo Swinney calling plays? I don't care if he is a head coach. Guy was a wide receiver coach, and he was hired to run the football team. He never called plays. Is this a midlife crisis? If that is true. If it's not, we need to stop saying that Dabo was calling plays. But if Dabo was calling plays, or Dabo, I think he made a statement along these lines that, Riley needs to learn the Clemson offense. No, he doesn't. Clemson offense sucked. We need to take that offense, wad it up, wipe with it, and flush it down the toilet. We don't need any of that offense. He doesn't need to learn anything other than don't call plays like that. But if this is... Let me say. Roger Parks says, Dabo said he was saying yes or no to the play call in the bowl game. Hey, folks, I know, and Roger, I'm not rebutting you. I know somebody's going to come on here and defend that and say, well, the head coach, he can say yes or no to play calls. You can deal with it, buddy. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, head coaches, they do that from time to time. But Dabo needs to leave the play calling to Garrett Riley. And if he made a bad hire, maybe we need to find a new OC. But either trust your hire or fire them. End of story. Dabo is not a play caller, folks. He never was. He was one heck of a executive, putting people in places that they knew what they were doing. He hired experienced people in. I'm sorry, he doesn't need to be calling plays. If that's the case. If it's not, then forget everything I just said. And then, Riley needs to go. If that's his offense, it looked that bad, and they're paying him that much money, yeah, he needs to go. After one season, absolutely. It was that bad. It was terrible. Going to keep going, scrolling through here. Southern Illinois at BYU. That is not a big game. I want to go to a game at BYU. Have you seen the pictures? Beautiful place. Coastal Carolina at Jacksonville State. Coastal Carolina was really good when they had Jamie Chadwell. Now, Jamie Chadwell's last year there was not that good compared to his other years. But he did great things at Coastal Carolina. He had that majestic, magical 2020 season with Grayson McCall. They beat BYU. But last year they struggled a lot. They're playing against Jacksonville State, and if my memory serves me correct, former Clemson offensive coordinator, former Michigan, former West Virginia, former Arizona head coach Rich Rodriguez is still the head coach at Jacksonville State. Speak of the devil, Campbell at Liberty. At Liberty. Jamie Chadwell got them to the Fiesta Bowl, and they got murdered by Oregon. They shouldn't have been in the Fiesta Bowl. They should have put them in another bowl. That was not good for the program, but anyway. Louisville starting off with a cupcake. Don't blame them for that. It's good to get your feet up, up under you. Will Louisville play good, solid football this year? Someone described them very well, that they had enough gas for a 10-game season, not a 12 or 13, and that's very true. Tennessee, they're going to have Nico. Nico is going to be leading the team. No more Joe Milton. I told everybody that Joe Milton had one good game at that time in his 5 years of college football, and now it ended up being one good game in 6 years of college football. But Tennessee fans told me that not all of them, but some of them, a lot of them, told me I was just salty after the loss. He's a freak. He can stick the ball in his butt and fart it 95 yards. Yep, he had no control. He's a great athlete. Like physically, great athlete, big. He doesn't have any control. You got to have control, folks. Come on. It's not this hard. It's not that hard. But I think with this Nico kid, they're going to do well. He's going to make some mistakes because he's young. Nico is very talented. We have Ohio State kicking off with Akron. Yeah, Ohio State's going to try to make a run for the national championship. He'll be interested. It's just, will Ryan Day? How will Ryan Day finally beat Michigan this year since Harbaugh's gone? Auburn, second year for Hugh Freeze, getting an easy game. That's not bad. Just go ahead and get a glorified practice that goes in the win-loss column. That can be good for you. How will they play, this year? Have LSU versus Southern Cal out in Las Vegas. That game should be much bigger than what it is, but it's not. Brian Kelly is one of those guys who can get you to the big game, but he can't win it. He can get you to the national championship, but he's going to get throttled. He can get you to the college football playoff game, and he's going to get they're going to get kicked in the head. That 1 year in 2020 where they got Notre Dame. He got Notre Dame to the ACC championship because they were, momentary member because they had to join a conference, football-wise, because of everything going on in 2020. Still don't like to even talk about it. And they played Clemson. Clemson didn't have Trevor because of protocols. They beat Clemson. Didn't want to hear that they didn't beat the real Clemson, and then they played the real Clemson in the ACC championship, got their head ripped off. And that is Brian Kelly football. Brian Kelly can win a lot of games, which is great. Just don't expect him to get you to a national championship and actually win it. It's not going to happen. Lincoln Riley, will he start feeling a lot of pressure this year? How will he respond? This transfer portal game has got to be a headache. It has to be. Last but not least, Monday night. Now think about this. Florida State played the week before in Dublin, Ireland. And then they get a Monday night game, so they get some rest. And they play Boston College. So Boston College has a new head coach. For some reason, I can't remember who it is that's the head coach at Boston College right now. Y'all leave that in the comment sections. But that is your preview of week 0 and week number 1 for college football. I'm going to go in here real quick. Big John Setton. Howdy, Mr. Unpredictable. Shouldn't you be playing golf? It's great to see you are on your game. My friend, first of all, thanks for supporting the channel. Big John supports the channel monthly. And he supports the channel even besides monthly. So thank you, Big John, for doing that. You know what? I am just hanging out. I am going to be watching... Big John says it's Bill O'Brien that's coaching at Boston College. Bill O'Brien can coach football, folks. I know some people, they like to take shots at him. Bill O'Brien has done very well. Yes, he's had his moments where it's like, oh, what is going on here? But I'm telling you, Bill O'Brien is one of those guys who 1 minute he coaches great, next minute not so great. But he can coach. And a job like Boston College, remember he took over, he was the one that took over Penn State after the Sandusky-Paterno thing went on. Think about that. So he could be a problem there. But Big John, I am just hanging out. I'm going to be watching some basketball today. I might do some things around the house. You never know. I might hop in the car and go take a drive to the mountains. That's just how I roll. Big John, thanks for supporting the channel. Some of these teams change coaches like my co-workers change underwear once a year. Remind me to never stop by your workplace. Folks, I'm going to play this one last time, a big announcement for the show. I have joined the College Huddle. The College Huddle reached out to me. Eric Boggs over there at the College Huddle reached out to me and said, listen, we've pulled together a bunch of YouTubers, podcasters who represent their team. And I told him, I said, I've been thinking about doing this for a while. I know that some people's tried it in the past. And folks, it's very hard to get everybody on one schedule. You have no clue how hard it's difficult for me to stay on a schedule to do these shows, right? Why? Because of life. This is not my full-time gig. I'm in my office, and I have my corner decorated over here with my Clemson stuff. This is where I do my show, but if I flip the camera around, this is my office. This is where I basically live. But I am really subject to my schedule. So it's very difficult to pull everybody together. It's very impressive what they did. They shared their vision with me, and I said, hey, I like this. And so we're going to be launching in April, sometime in April. Yes, folks, my hair is messed up terribly messed up. But I'm just going to play this for you. It's just a nice little teaser. It's a group of just people like myself who has no strings attached, can talk about their team as they will. Big John says, congratulations on joining a group of college football nuts. Yes, absolutely. We're nuts. We're crazy. And we're going to have fun collaborating. That will launch sometime in April. Folks, as I said, 25 weeks from today, March the 2nd, is week 0. 26 weeks away, which is half a year from today, is August the 31st. That's the day the Clemson will play Georgia in Atlanta, and the season will officially kick off in all its glory and questions and frustration and happiness and wonderings. And folks, I want to tell you this. I know I get on here and I talk about things, and sometimes it gets heavy, sometimes it gets very pessimistic, according to some of you. But folks, I want to tell you this. I love college football, and I love my Clemson Tigers. I love getting on here and hearing what you have to think, even if you disagree with me. I had a bunch of people come out with me this week on one of the videos that I did and told me that, hey, I just disagree with you. And I said, hey, that's totally fine. I'm glad that, we may disagree, but that's fine as long as we don't get personal. That's just dumb. Getting personal over a pastime. Also, I love it when people get personal and they don't want to speak to me over Dabo Swinney, a person they don't know and a person I don't know. That's when it gets rich. But even with Swinney, I respect what he's done, and I'm not going after him personally. I'm just saying I just don't see the fight there anymore, but that's another topic. I love my Tigers, and I love college football, and I really enjoy talking to every one of you as much as I possibly can. I try to respond as quickly as I can. I know today is a long video. I don't expect anybody to really watch these videos. I always, if you notice, more of my videos recently are around 15 minutes long, somewhere in there, just because it's easier to watch or listen to a 15-minute long video. But today was just having a little fun. Folks, I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a safe weekend. If you're working, I hope you don't have to work too hard. You take care of yourself, and as always, go Tigers.